You've been told sugar is the enemy. That's the reason why you can't lose weight. But what if I told you that might be a lie? Millions of people are cutting sugar and still gaining fat, especially around the belly. Because the real culprit, it's something your doctor won't test for. And it's been silently wrecking your metabolism for years. In the next few minutes, I'll expose what's really making you obese and how to shut it off starting today. Let's cut straight to it. Obesity is not caused by caloric consumption or excess calories. It's not just about carbohydrates. It's not even about sugar. The true root cause of modern weight gain, obesity, and weight loss resistance is cellular membrane inflammation. This is really important for those watching on YouTube. I'm going to illustrate exactly what I mean. And if you're listening on the podcast, I will still explain it in a way for you to get it, but you might want to go watch the video after you've listened to it. All right, this is the most important part of the lesson, because if you understand this, you'll know more about your metabolism than most dietitians and doctors, and for sure, more than anything you've learned in your past. So I want you to look at here, and for those listening, I have a photo, an illustration that I drew on a piece of paper of a cell. This is a cell, and we have about 50 to 70 trillion cells inside of the body. Every cell has this lipid layer, this lipid bilayer around it called the cell membrane. The cell membrane has these integral membrane proteins attached to it. They're also called receptor sites. Think of these as a cell phone antenna. It needs to receive a signal to perform a job. We'll come back to that in a second. Within your cells, you have your DNA nucleus. Yeah, if you have obesity, diabetes, cancer, autoimmune that runs in the family, you got those genes. Nothing you can do about it. You were born and dealt those deck of cards. That's the bad news. The good news is that you have 95 to 99% control over the expression of those genes. Genes load the gun, your lifestyle pulls the trigger. And we're going to talk about the 5 worst things that cause cellular inflammation that's pulling the trigger of these bad genes. But let's continue. Within the cell, you have these little organelles called the mitochondria. I drew 3, but there are hundreds to thousands in a single cell. It produces energy called ATP. All right, a cell that is thriving, a human body that is lean, amazing energy levels, the way God built your incredible human body, this is the way it works. You have hormones like fat-burning hormones, energy-producing hormones, longevity hormones that are sending signals to your cells. The receptor sites pick it up, you burn fat, you detox the cell, you feel good. Then you have oxygen that connect to the cells, and it creates a thriving environment. Nutrients from food and supplements, it creates a thriving environment. But here's the thing. Here's the number one reason why you've gained weight and the number one cause for obesity and weight loss resistance. You ready for it? It is inflammation. And when I say inflammation, I'm not talking about acute inflammation. I'm talking about chronic cell membrane inflammation. When the cell membrane gets inflamed, now the hormones, the oxygen, the nutrients can't communicate effectively, meaning your fat-burning hormones cannot get into the cell. The cell creates inflammation, toxins cannot get out. In other words, good things cannot get in, bad things cannot get out, and you start having symptoms. One of those symptoms is weight gain. Yeah, that's right. You don't have a weight problem, you have a weight symptom. So think of this cell, when it has too much inflammation, as a locked door. If the lock is broken or the lock is malfunctioning, insulin can't get in to drive down glucose. Your testosterone can't get in to burn fat. Your T3 hormone for thyroid can't get in. I could keep going on with all 600 hormones. I will not. The number one thing you want to do is to lower cell membrane inflammation. Sugar, does it cause cell membrane inflammation? Yes, but it turns out there are other things that you're probably doing that actually create more cell membrane inflammation. We're going to identify those things. When we remove it, the cell membrane lowers inflammation and you burn fat as a side effect. Pretty cool. So with that being said, I'm going to share the top 5 drivers of cell membrane inflammation and what you can do to reverse it, and a urine test that is 50 times more accurate that you can do at home that will test for cell membrane inflammation, and I'll share with you how it works and how to get that test. Let's start with the first driver of cell membrane inflammation. Ultra-processed foods. I talk about this in depth in chapter 4 of Metabolic Freedom. Look, you've probably been told to avoid sugar. Great advice. But the real damage often starts with ultra-processed junk food, especially industrial seed oils like soybean, canola, cottonseed, safflower, soybean. These are also called vegetable oils. And then we have high fructose corn syrup, which is processed predominantly by the liver. 90% of it's processed by the liver, leading to fatty liver disease. And then we have additives, preservatives, and fake flavors. You're going to find these ingredients in packaged, boxed foods. And these foods, by the way, are loaded with these bad fats, these omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, which are highly unstable fats, prone to oxidation. Once they're oxidized, they damage the cell membrane, making it rigid and inflamed. In chapter 4 of Metabolic Freedom, my latest book, I talk about a process called lipid membrane reorganization, which shows that when you eat these bad fats, canola, soybean, these seed oils, within hours, they make up your cell membrane. And you might think, okay, I've done some damage. My body will remove them in a day, maybe in a week. In a month? No, the half-life of these bad fats are 680 days. Yikes. That means if you stop eating them today, 680 days later, 2 years, it'll still be around your cell membranes, creating inflammation. A 2020 study published in Nutrients showed that excess seed oils, omega-6 fats, that are directly linked to increased fat mass and impaired mitochondrial function. And then we have high fructose corn syrup, which you're going to find in healthy products like yogurts, oatmeal, cereal, wheat bread, whole grain bread. This overwhelms your liver and it makes your liver turn carbs into fat faster than even glucose. But the biggest issue here is how these foods alter your metabolic set point by inflaming every cell, the very cells responsible for hormone sensitivity. So what can you do? Remove the following bad fats: canola, corn, cottonseed oil, soybean, safflower, sunflower oil, rice bran oil, grapeseed oil, and I would even throw fish oil in there as a bad fat. Swap those for butter, ghee, coconut oil, beef tallow, lard from a healthy source, avocado oil, and olive oil. And then do an audit on your ingredients and make sure it does not contain high fructose corn syrup. Make sure it does not contain artificial sweeteners like sucralose and aspartame. Just eat real food, single ingredient foods. You're going to lower cell membrane inflammation and lose fat as a side effect. Okay, number 2 reason why you have cell inflammation is actually snacking and grazing. You've heard this bad advice that I used to give out 10 plus years ago. Eat every 2 to 3 hours to stoke your metabolism. Sound familiar? This advice is one of the most metabolically damaging habits that you can follow. When I do keynotes speaking on stage, I say the following. I say, if you want to age faster than anybody you know, eat every 2 to 3 hours. Every time you eat, especially if it's carbohydrates, you spike insulin, your fat storage hormone, which is also an energy sensor. When you're constantly snacking, even on the healthiest snack in the world, insulin never gets a break. Over time, your cells become more insulin resistant, meaning the receptor sites for insulin cannot hear the message, so glucose pulls up in the bloodstream. That forces your pancreas to produce more insulin, leading to more fat storage. It's a vicious cycle. A study in cell metabolism showed that meal frequency is directly tied to reduced insulin sensitivity and increased body fat, especially visceral fat. So what do? Start with eating just 3 meals a day, which do not contain the seed oils, the high fructose corn syrup, or the artificial sweeteners. They're more focused on high protein, healthy fats, and start with 3 meals a day, no snacking in between. The third reason why you have cell membrane inflammation is a big one. That's going to be chronic stress. Here's one most people ignore. Chronic unresolved stress is one of the biggest drivers of cellular inflammation. Every time you feel anxious, overworked, emotional conflict, or even consume bad news like on social media, God forbid you watch the actual news on TV, your body releases cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is helpful and fine, but chronically elevated levels of cortisol increases belly fat. Here's an interesting fact for you. You could share this with somebody you know today. Your visceral fat has twice the amount of cortisol receptor sites versus your subcutaneous body fat. So the more cortisol you produce, the faster it leads to belly fat. That's why it's called the cortisol belly. It also raises your blood sugar levels because when cortisol goes up, glucose follows. And then it damages your cellular membrane health by generating free radicals and oxidative stress. So you can see how it just makes the cell membrane inflammation even worse. Stress causes something called leaky cells, breaking down cell membrane integrity, making fat storage more likely, and making fat burning nearly impossible. So what to do? You don't want to avoid stress. You don't want to put yourself in a bubble. That's not what I'm saying. But you can focus on your breath. You could breathe through your nostrils, your nose versus your mouth. You could go out and get nature walks. take phone breaks, and do it like your metabolism depends on it, because it does. And one of the best things you can do to lower cortisol is to raise the hormone oxytocin. And there's a supplement called vitamin G. It's the best supplement in the world for tapering down cortisol, helps with fat loss, helps with cell membrane inflammation. As soon as you take it, it lowers cell membrane inflammation right away because it boosts oxytocin. JAMA has a study that was published from Harvard in JAMA that looked at 49,275 nurses, and it showed the nurses who took vitamin G every day had a 9% reduction in dying from all-cause mortality versus the nurses who didn't take vitamin G, and a 15% reduction in dying from cardiovascular deaths. UC Davis also has a study that I published in Chapter 10 of Metabolic Freedom that showed those who take vitamin G had healthier blood pressure levels and healthier blood sugar levels. So I don't have a coupon code or an affiliate link for vitamin G because vitamin G is the feeling of gratitude. Notice how I didn't say the practice of gratitude, but the feeling of gratitude. When you go into a meal feeling grateful, when you wake up in the morning and feel gratitude, you boost oxytocin, lower cortisol. Those are legitimate studies on gratitude. What you appreciate, it appreciates. And what you think about, you bring about in your life. The cool thing about gratitude, vitamin G, it's free. There's no toxicity limit. Take as much as you want. There's no negative feedback loop. You'll continue to benefit. Cause number 4 of cellular inflammation goes hand in hand with chronic stress, and that's going to be poor sleep. If you just miss a few nights of quality sleep, you're not just tired, you're metabolically inflamed. Poor sleep leads to higher cortisol levels. We just established why that's not good. Lower levels of leptin, the satiety hormone, increased levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and cellular insulin resistance within 48 hours. Yikes. In fact, just one night of poor sleep can reduce insulin sensitivity by over 30%, according to a study in The Lancet. That means you'll store more fat from the same meal just because you are sleep deprived. And inflammation at the mitochondrial level skyrockets, slowing energy production and increasing fat gain. What to do? Prioritize your circadian rhythm. A lot of things you can do. Read or listen to Chapter 6 of Metabolic Freedom because it's all about improving your sleep quality. I'll give you a couple tips. Bedroom should be cold, 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. It should be the thermostat. Blackout curtains or a sleep mask is great. No food at least 3 hours before bed. And if you can, avoid too much artificial light 2 hours before bedtime. There's a lot more you can do. Go check out Metabolic Freedom over at metabolicfreedombook.com, or click the link down below, or scan the QR code to get Metabolic Freedom book today. And you could also get a free course on the metabolism, but Chapter 6 is all about sleep. All right, number 5, probably the most impactful reason why you have cellular inflammation is because of stinking thinking and lack of purpose. Chapter 10 of Metabolic Freedom is all about this. Here's one most weight loss experts never mention. Your thoughts and your beliefs can either fuel inflammation or help to reverse it. If you constantly think, I'm broken, I'll always be overweight, I hate my body, these thoughts trigger fight or flight. Cortisol surges and your immune system is disrupted. Even worse, lack of purpose is biologically linked to poor metabolic health. I think a lot of people are not tired, they're uninspired. And I also believe that this obesity crisis we have is not so much because of what people are eating, but what's eating people. They don't have purpose. They are what Earl Nightingale used to say, tiptoeing their way through life, hoping to land safely on death's door. This was my life for 20 plus years. This is the main reason I used to be obese. A landmark study published in JAMA found that people with a strong sense of purpose had lower CRP levels, which is an inflammatory marker. They also had better sleep and a reduced risk of metabolic syndrome. When you lack mission, your body lacks direction. So what can you do? Rewire your inner script. Don't take your big problems to God, my friend. Take your big God to your problems, said Dr. Michael Beckwith. You are creating the stories. And if you're creating stories of a victim mindset, of you are the victim and you're not responsible, it's your slow metabolism, you're enabling family members, or this person's the reason why you feel unhappy and unhealthy. Look, Bob Proctor once said, you are the only problem you will ever have. You're also the only solution. It starts with taking ownership. It starts with taking responsibility. And Dr. Wayne Dyer said, responsibility is your ability to respond to life. You improve your ability to respond to life, you're going to improve your results. So stop being the victim of your history and start to become the victor of your destiny. Change your environment. Read amazing books from Dr. Wayne Dyer and Bob Proctor. Continuously tune into my podcast. It'll change your thoughts which changes your behavior and your actions. And find what's important to you, your purpose, and live on purpose with that purpose. I'm going to get to your commonly asked questions here on this topic. Before I do, I want to encourage you to go get Metabolic Freedom. Chapter 10 is all about purpose, longevity, gratitude. It's my favorite chapter in the book. Scan the QR code on the screen to get it on either hardcover, Kindle, Audible, or Spotify. I narrated the audios myself. And when you get it today, over at that QR code or over at metabolicfreedombook.com, you'll get an entire course on the metabolism for free. I will also drop that link down below. Let's get to your questions. How do I know if I have cellular inflammation? Okay, I told you I was going to tell you about a test. This test is a urine test that takes a couple minutes to complete. You do it at the comfort of your own home, and you get a result. And this is looking at something called malondialdehyde, which is the oxidation, the inflammation coming off the cell membranes. And this test is actually about 50 times more accurate than any blood test looking specifically at what I drew earlier, cell membrane inflammation. It's more accurate than a C-reactive protein, homocysteine. Those are great tests, don't get me wrong, but this is specifically looking at cell membrane inflammation. You need to have a practitioner to order this test. However, I have a special link for you to go get it. And if you purchase it, you have to be in the United States, by the way. Otherwise, there'll be additional shipping fees. But if you live in the US and click the link in the notes down below, you can see a way to get this test. It'll be sent out to you, and then you're going to simply complete it at home. It'll turn a certain color. I'll show you a graphic here for those watching on YouTube. The darker the color, the more cell membrane inflammation you have. And I would recommend making the changes I suggested in this video. First, doing the test, making the changes, and then retesting every 3 to 6 months and watch it improve. But you'll also notice that with your belly fat, your energy levels, and your vitality and health. Number 2, are seed oils worse than sugar? I think they are, because seed oils stick around for a lot longer than sugar. When you eat sugar, sure, it's not good for you. I'm not making the case for sugar in this lesson, but when you eat sugar, you have a glucose spike and it goes back down. Seed oils, they stay in your body for years. Is fasting safe if I'm already under stress? I wouldn't do much fasting if you already have too much stress. I would work on increasing your heart rate variability. Hopefully you track that. And then as you see your heart rate variability increase, as you see your sleep improve, you could start increasing your fasting window. And I teach my students inside of the Keto Camp Academy how to do this. If you want me to coach you and have a system in place to do all the things you're learning, head over to ketocampacademy.com. How does alcohol fit into this equation? Well, it'll make inflammation worse. And if you're already inflamed, I would avoid or limit alcohol completely, because alcohol is a toxin. Even if it's a clean, healthy, or like the healthiest version of alcohol, I don't know if that's such a thing, but the most expensive is what I'm trying to say. It's still a toxin. Your body, your liver has to metabolize it. So I would remove it. Personally, I haven't had a sip of alcohol in close to 10 years. There you have it. This is the case for why cell membrane inflammation is the number one thing you want to look at. Look at the notes of this lesson for all the resources I mentioned. Share this with somebody you know, and I hope this is valuable. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And hey, if you love this lesson, I recently published a lesson on something that works better than Ozempic. It's a lot cheaper and no side effects like Ozempic, and you drink it 1 cup of this every day for great fat loss. It lowers cell membrane inflammation as well. So check out a clip from that video, and I'll see you in that next lesson by clicking the video on the screen. In this lesson, I'll share with you 5 powerful drinks, each backed up by human research that support appetite control, metabolic health, and sustained weight loss. Coffee is naturally thermogenic, meaning your metabolism burns more calories throughout the day, even at rest after you drink a cup of coffee.